Welcome to the Enneagram Panels podcast. My name is Jim Zartman, and today it's the 4, and I'm here with Enneagram coach Joel Hubbard.
Yeah, I am. I love all this stuff. This is so much fun. We get to talk to a group of 4s and hear what's going on underneath their skin. Right? We love how 4s are so self-aware. They're the types that know their emotions. They're the types that oftentimes end up creating beauty in the world. They're many times artists. There are many of them that love and do art, but not all of them. But whatever field they're in, they definitely bring a measure of beauty to it. And so there's a lot of awareness in the heart space. They're in the heart space as the 2, 3s, and 4s. We've been talking about that. And you're going to hear that particularly in this podcast because they are very self-aware of what's going on internally at any given moment.
And I didn't feel like this on all the panels, but there was something about this one where the 4s have this incredible capacity to just draw you in. They're so magnetic in a way. It was fascinating to watch their energy, and I was mesmerized by the way they describe things, the way they tell stories, just pull you in. And I just thought that was just so cool.
One of their superpowers is just the ability to articulate in ways that you have never heard. They're unique. And so when they speak or when they do things, it's oftentimes done in a very thoughtful and different and unique way, which is attractive. It draws people in, it drew me in. I found myself a few times, and I'm moderating it, finding myself a few times totally like lost in their space and having to come out and okay, right, I'm here too.
Yeah. So this one's going to be a journey. We're so excited.
Yeah.
You get go on a journey with the 4s. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride on this one.
Let's look at the 4. The 4s early on discerned that something within themselves was amiss. Something was broken. Something was defective. Nearly every 4 I talk to, it says something similar to that with their own wording, their own language, but there's something that they believe is broken, something that's not quite right, defective. And that sort of launches them into this journey of finding what that piece is. What's wrong with me? Who am I? What is my identity? I need to find that. And once I find that, then I'll be whole and complete. Or there's a missing love. And when I find that love, I will be whole. And so the 4 knows intuitively that the space of self-discovery is in the space of the emotions. And so unlike the 3 that says, wow, the emotions really get in the way of my success, the 4 says, that's the way I'm going to find out who am I, what's wrong, what's broken with me. So the 4 goes into the emotional space and tends to trust more of the darker emotions, oftentimes spends some time with them, doesn't have a problem savoring those beautiful emotions. 4s tend to feel the need to be understood a lot. I've had some 4s say to me, man, I just wish people understood me. There's a sense of like wanting to be understood, wanting to be seen, and at the same time, not wanting to be seen. I know a lot of 4s that say this to me, like, I don't want to be noticed. I have one 4 that says to me, I don't want to be noticed, and yet I would watch as she would walk in late to church and would walk right up to the front aisle in great display and like sit down. But at the same time, I really believed in her heart she was struggling with both of that. Like, I want to be noticed, but I don't want to be seen at the same time. And so there's this pursuit of that I need to know what's going on the inside. So the 4, in the space of real stress, when the type stops working for itself, the 4 will go to the 2. And that's when the 4 that is naturally introspective knows what the 4 feels, but also can feel the room. This is what's remarkable about the 4. This is what's special about the 4. No other type really can do it quite as well as the 4. The 4s in my life have really profoundly helped me to access my emotional space. They know how to do that for themselves, but also for other people. But what happens when the 4 stops being able to, with a type stops working for itself, it becomes stressed and starts to disintegrate, it can start to lean into manipulation and lean into the low side of the two. Now, remember, for those of you who've been through our workshop on the types, or for those of you who are just familiar with the Enneagram, the 2 is the helper. The high side of the 2 is they're capable of scanning and reading a room and knowing who needs help before they even know that they need help, and meeting that need, and remarkably meeting that need very accurately and beautifully. So 2s have a powerful ability at knowing how to help, how to make people feel connected and loved. But the low side is the 2 can become very manipulative and try to get its needs met by meeting the needs of other people and expecting those needs to also be met. So some of that manipulation comes in on the low side of the 2 when the 4 goes into stress. When the 4 is becoming integrated or healthy, it stops looking so introspectively forever at the emotions and actually starts to move forward in action. And that's actually, it's healing in many regards. It's like, it's just the activity of moving forward seems to help the 4 get unstuck. So I've said enough about the 4. I know a lot of 4s, and the 4s have profoundly helped my life in many regards, especially in the emotional area. They create beauty in the world. Without 4s, we wouldn't have all the incredible music and art that we have in our world today. So anyway, so I've said enough about the 4s. Talk about yourselves. I'd like to hear from your perspective, if this is true, how you would language it.
My name is Tuck, and I relate to most of what you said. I was thinking about going to the shadow side of the 2 when I'm not feeling healthy. And that's a new thought for me. I'm not so up on all of what I'm supposed to be here, but but growing up, I just thought it was me growing up in my family, but this really resonates. Growing up, I was the gopher. I was like, fine, I'll just do it. And I was, there are 2 boys, 2 of the older boys in the family and a younger sister. And there was, Dad had us working on all sorts of things all the time. And we were the gophers. We were the doers, the implementers. And because of that, I have this generally negative view of this gift, which is wrapped up in the artist. I'm really good at doing things. But when someone tells me I have to do it, I go right south. And I take on this identity of I'm this low-level grunt. And that speaks to the identity issue, is I feel undervalued and devalued, and that I lose it. So growing up like that, and I'm finding myself, I fall into this at work regularly. If I don't feel like I am being valued for my specific gifts and talents and application thereof, I immediately go to, fine, you're the boss, I'll just do my job. And I'm miserable. I get hateful and bitter and angry, and I go into this horrible place and just try to survive the day doing what I do. So that's interesting downside to me. It really connects with that. The upside, the creativity part, I am talented with my hands. Probably, hopefully it's a gift, but it's also just from years and years of doing things with my hands. I have fallen into outlets of creativity. More commercially, I don't paint or sculpt, although if I were wealthy, I would. I would make the time.
My name is Scott, and the thing that I relate to fundamentally is, as far as an outlook, when you were talking about the initial sense of what 4s pick up early on, is that I don't belong. I mean, that's really the phrase that stays with me the most. And I'm just amazed that no matter where I go, when I enter into a new situation, that's the lens I see through. So, these people would not get me. You know, I don't really belong here. And when I go to a week-long camp or participate in some ministry thing that's for a period of time, inevitably the first 2 days are spent feeling quite alienated and different. So that idea of feeling different, I am different from other people, and trying to handle that basically negative feeling by trying to be different in a positive way, like trying to be unique, trying to make that difference count in some special way, to feel better about really not belonging. That's a fundamental thing. And I've tried to figure out where that came from in my life, because I actually had a fairly happy childhood. There was divorce in my family, but not until I was 13. I learned after, when I was kind of an adolescent, I learned that when I was born, I had a disease that killed some of the babies in this hospital, and that I was put in an incubator and didn't have much contact with my mom for the first week or so. So I just think, oh, that's really interesting, that I have this sense I don't belong. And very early on, I had an experience of really not belonging, or at least having that sense. I do think in terms of creativity and beauty that, just an example, I can't do emails without trying to make the email special. Like without trying to convey to the other person that I really have something special to say to you. You're special, and I can't let like an ordinary email be ordinary. It's got to have, a special way of. I will belabor how I sign off on an email. It's like, what's the word to use here? And the same is true in like writing a thank you letter. My wife, teases me forever because I need to make my own cards. I need to make my, no Hallmark card will do. It needs to be a collage or a piece of art that I create or something like that, just because I have this sense, and it comes from me, really, in the sense of not belonging. I don't want anyone else to think that they're not special. So it's not just that I'm consumed with that myself. I really am sensitive about that for others. And I think that's actually part of why I'm good at the work I do. It's like I really am. I want people to realize you're unique. You have a gift, and God has a purpose for you in the world. So I'm sensitive on that line. I think it works to the benefit of others. Oftentimes it works to my detriment because I feel like I don't fit in anywhere, that kind of feeling.
My name is Tracy, and yes, I do relate. So right now I just made a big transition, and I started going this semester. I moved to Hamilton, but I started going to seminary. And the thing is that if I don't make a connection right away, I do. I think, okay, I don't belong. I'm not like everybody else. I don't think like everybody else. It will take me longer to write a paper because if I get stuck, I'll go back and I'll edit 3 or 4 times before completing a paper. And I don't complete things. And then there are times that I wish that I could just turn off my emotions because I'm so into like, oh, I feel A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Well, why? And I'm into this big reason of why am I feeling A, B, C, D, E, F, G? Well, sometimes you're just feeling it just because. So that's the thing is for me to get up and move to action because I can overanalyze feelings. And so since I've moved, I feel like what I felt before just magnified like 100 times. All the emotions that I had when I was like a teenager, like say in junior high, that those came back up again. And I'm feeling like I'm back in junior high all over again. And I'm trying to analyze like, God, what's going on? I just want to realize like, okay, I have this feeling. Let's not overanalyze. Let's put an action towards it. And then if I need to go back and go over it, I will.
Talk about your trust in the emotional space. How much do you trust what you feel? And what's that process been like for you as you've got these emotions and they feel very strong to you? So how much trust is placed in those emotions? How has that process worked out for you to look at them, but then also to recognize maybe they're just emotions, or maybe you're not even, maybe you're still exploring that. But how do you talk a little bit about that?
I, at this point in my life, have a hard time trusting my emotions because I realize that I can get flooded with them. I mean, just to check in, I don't know what my partners here would agree, but, feelings come to me big and easily. And so, I will shed many a tear in a movie or, a song or something, the feelings flood in that way. And particularly the melancholic feelings, quite frankly. And I think in part, that gives me a capacity, as you said in your introduction, to connect with other people who are struggling. I can draw them out. I am not afraid to go there. I'm quite familiar. I live there a lot, I have in the past. But I do feel like sometimes I just feel like enough, Scott, just figure out what needs to be done. I feel like the feelings are like a barrier and I cannot move as I should. And they can get the better of me and they can blur my sight. My wife, Louise, can tell you that, when criticism comes, or when something comes to me or information comes that someone's dissatisfied with me, I will take that to the negative immediately. Okay, what did I do wrong? That's my assumption. There's a feeling, again, it's that feeling of not belonging and a sinking with that. And instead of kind of recognizing there are plenty of reasons why they might be registering, dissatisfaction, it might have nothing to do with me. I can just sort of own that and then dwell in that space, be very unproductive. And so I've come to really be suspicious of my feelings. And I think that fours generally, and I know this is true of myself, we pick up on nuances of things. We don't see in terms of black and white. And so when it comes to things like morality, I don't easily see, as some other types do, that there's a right way and there's a wrong way. To me, it's like fairly nuanced. And I'm actually glad that I see the complexities of life in that way. But at times, I also am afraid that I'm blind, that in certain situations when you really need to be clear and say, no, we're not going to do that. That is not good, or that's not right. I sometimes feel like I'm not as capable of making that kind of judgment call in the moment because I've got this nuance of feeling. I can understand how you feel, and I can understand how you feel. It sort of sounds like the 9 a little bit, but I can feel into the complexity of things. Things are gray. They're not always black and white. But when those circumstances in life call for that black and white understanding, which they sometimes do, I kind of feel like, gosh, man, am I going to be ready to make that judgment call? Because I don't see it that way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Just to touch on the email thing you mentioned, that cracked me up. Scott and I were emailing yesterday about this event, and
I could take a while.
Days. And it did take some extra time because I'm trying to be succinct because I'm at work. I got stuff to do, so I didn't say Scott, comma, space, and a body of text, and then sign my name in some fashion or other. I was trying to be quick, and I had to really concentrate to not flower it up and make sure that the punctuation was right and the wording was right and was expressing what I wanted to say, and all the complexities that usually go into that to most emails, which is cracking me up because I didn't. So texting for the same thing, I'm just like, people seem to have. Like our friend Paul, he speaks in partial sentences in text. I have to do full sentences on a text. It's really hard for me to just keep it succinct and not like be polite or help people feel that I'm communicating in a proper fashion. All this, the shorthand of these ways of communicating these days is very difficult for me. I'm much more comfortable spreading it out and covering it all the bases, because the details, the nuances of anything, of a given sentence or a thought are super important to me. And back to work, I'm pretty sure my boss is a 1, so for him, if I'm getting this right, black and white is very easy for him. He's a scientist. He thinks in black and white. It's right or wrong, and he and I have to negotiate our system. We're trying to make something happen, and so he's really quick to make a decision, and it's this way. And then there's this dull silence for a while as I'm thinking in my mind, you're so not right. Because there's this whole region of space, of stuff going on in here that you're missing. It's not just that or that. There's all of this. And so I have to take a deep breath and try not to fight back, but to actually communicate, well, what about this? Well, what about this? Well, what about this? And on and on. And it's been a process, and I've trying to coach him and help him understand that there is such thing as the gray area, and what about this idea? And it takes him a long time to process. And so I'm either there, just trying to push back a little bit gently as I can. But it may be an hour or a day later, he'll come back around. That was a good idea. What? Didn't you hear me say that right up front?
I laugh about the emails because that was the number one thing that in work, when it came time for my review and they asked my coworkers. And mind you, I worked in an office by myself. So that's when she went and she would ask other people that you worked with, name positive things that Tracy has, and then name something that can be changed. And they all said lengthy emails. And the thing is, it had nothing to do with work. But if I got into an email where we just start asking each other, like, how are you doing? The thing is that the email response back to them would be wordy. And so after I got that review, I remember what I would do is I would put in the subject line, this is not important, knowing that they're all working in doctor's offices. And then I tend to out over, like, text. My text can be lengthy because I'm telling you what I feel and I'm telling you everything all at once. And I can be so detail-oriented that it's good, but when explaining something, I can drive people crazy.
And so one of the vice of the 4 is envy. And it's not that you want others not to have things, but that there's a desire that there's something others have that you don't have. Does that ring true for you? But as you look at the world around you, I mean, you mentioned that, Scott, right at the beginning, is always on the outside looking in, not the thing of, like, when you first go to a conference and you look around, it's like, I don't fit in. So when you look out at the world around you, is that true for you? Do you feel like others have something that you don't have? Maybe a joy, maybe a kind of life that you wish you had?
Yes. So I think when I go into a group of people, I don't, what was your word? I wouldn't phrase it that way. But I have noticed that I would make an effort to get involved, to belong, to find that group of people. Like, I'm going to go hang out with the cool kids, and I'm going to prove my worth and fit in that way. Part of going into a room and you get talking to folks. I grew up with my parents who were, I wouldn't call them heavy drinkers, but they were certainly social drinkers, and there was lots of cocktail parties. So that was my access to the world to people. I would talk to whoever, and especially more and more as an adult, and indeed envy them because they seemed to know who they were and what they were about. And I'm sitting here still trying to figure out who I am and why I'm here. I was just saying to Scott and Louise tonight, this is an ongoing process, and I figure, what a tragedy this is, which is part of being a drama queen. Because nobody understands me, and there's this, and so everything's a tragedy. But wow, I'm talking to this person, I'm thinking, if only I knew when I was 15 that I wanted to be a doctor, and then was like a 3, so I could just go for it and make out the goals and plan and like succeed. Because I have just, it's been a disaster. So I definitely am jealous when I meet somebody who knows who they are, who's doing what they're doing because that's what they're passionate about. People who are visionary types. It's like, oh my God, they've got a vision. Wouldn't that be nice to have something to like go for? So yes, that the envy part of that I connect with.
Thank you. Sadly.
I've never really identified clearly with the word envy. The word that really is very clear for me is comparison. Like, I compare myself with other people very readily. And the whole idea of living very self-consciously. It's really, this is like comic, but this is like, I think, related to this problem in me. But when I was in high school, I was a baseball player, and I really loved the game, and I played it easily until I began to think about what would happen if I was a catcher. What happened if I overthrew the pitcher? And I became self-conscious. You play the game of sports and you have to just live the game. You just let it flow through you. And all of a sudden, I was haunted. And I had to stop playing catcher because it just wouldn't leave me, this thought that I might overthrow the pitcher, which is ridiculous. But that sense of seeing yourself acting, watching, having some spectator that's looking at your own performance while you're talking to other people or something like that, I think that's related to this comparison. How am I seen? How am I like this person or not like that person? So that can haunt me in that way and make me feel quite self-conscious. And that self-consciousness takes me out of just acting. I think we've all been talking about how good it is just to do what needs to be done, just act in the way that's healthy. And that self-consciousness, which oftentimes is prompted by, or at least aggravated by, how do I compare to other people, is a plague, I've grown a lot in that regard, and I'm glad for that, but it's still there in some ways.
Yeah, I don't know if I would use the word envy. I would say compare. And I will say that there are times that I wish I didn't think the way I thought. I think outside of the box. So there are times that I'll joke when I get something quickly and say, see, I can get things because I'm usually the last one to get something. I think part of me wishes that I could think like everybody else and that my emotions didn't always get in the way of how I thought. Because it gets really tiring comparing yourself to others. When I'm in a healthy space, I don't do that. And then when I get into a space that I think I'm between, like if you're talking about he is healthy, he is unhealthy, and I'm right here, then I start comparing myself to other people. And mind you, if I make a connection with someone right away, then, oh my gosh, this was the greatest day ever. Like, you don't understand. It could be 3 minutes out of a 24-hour period. But I was just like, no, I had the greatest day ever because there was this 3 minutes that this happened. And I mean, to everybody else to be like, Tracy, it was a little conversation. No, you don't understand. This 3 minutes was monumental because of the emotions that I felt when I was talking with this person. Or the way I knew that God used me to help listen and help someone with what they were dealing with.
Yes, one of the beautiful things about fours is your capacity to be with people in the space of suffering and not have to fix their emotions, like rescue them from their emotions. Oh, you shouldn't feel that. Fours, you're okay with that, and you give a lot of people grace in that space, and that's really a wonderful gift. So I just wanted to affirm that. One of the questions I have for you guys, though, is how does equanimity, because that's like the virtue of the four, the ability to kind of be level. How is that working for you? Or, where are you at in that process of finding equanimity, finding that even space where the emotions aren't, not that you're not having the emotions, but that you're not having the control, or the emotions aren't driving the show for you guys?
Good drugs. That's not really true, but one way out, I think, when I feel a way that I can make a choice to get out from under the melancholy you mentioned, and this idea of all the feelings and rummaging around in this more melancholic feelings. I don't like that, and yet apparently part of being a four is that that feeling becomes a friend, and it's certainly familiar. It is one of the more, or maybe even the most familiar emotion, and I can easily go into that space because it's so easy. But I don't like being there, and so historically my ways out are physically getting outside and getting active. I ride a motorcycle, so riding my bike is just awesome, and it feeds me and fills my soul. And when I'm riding, I mean, I just feel like I'm on top of the world, and I feel so resourced that I have lots to give.
Part of what's been helpful for me is to make a practice of journaling. So just at the very beginning of the day, writing what my wife and I have come to call, through a book called The Artist's Way, the morning pages. Just like 3 pages of just whatever's on my heart, whatever's on my mind. And to get it out of here onto a piece of paper, to create distance between this and that, immediately helps me realize that's a feeling. That's not reality. And I can choose to do with those feelings what I want to do. And I can make life-giving choices, healthy choices about how those feelings affect me, and I can make bad choices with that. But it makes a great deal of difference to get them up and out and on paper before me. For prayer, I can give that to God instead of having that stuff just churn around in me. And I'd say the other thing that helps me generally with equanimity is just anything that reminds me there's a much bigger story going on than your story. So getting out in nature, having adventuresome experiences with my sons or with my wife, just like a bigger story, that we are a part in the kingdom of God of a very great story. And when I'm reminded of that, then my story isn't so precious to me. It's not like something I have to cling to. There's a much more special world out there that I can enjoy being a small part of. I'm a part of it. That's great. I do belong in that world. And my narrative, which can be self-pitying, just sort of evaporates when I'm in that big space. And that's obviously really healthy for me.
This has been beautiful, isn't it? I mean, just the way you guys are able to articulate what's going on. They say 4s are the most self-aware of the types. It's really obvious tonight with what you're bringing.
For better or for worse.
And that's the other part that, it's so much to talk about, but like even the work of having to bring yourself up and out. Like if you go to melancholy, how do you, come through that? But I know you guys have questions and we're running out of time, so I want to make sure I get to yours as well. So questions for the panelists.
I would love to hear what you do, and morning pages is one answer, but what you do to really enjoy all the emotions even more. Because I feel like so much of what's been created musically and artistically and just masterpieces, I'm not saying you have to go into the misery all the time, but your willingness to feel in general makes you open to expression. So I'm just curious how that plays into your life these days.
I think not so much. I think I try to avoid it. I never thought of myself as an emotional person. It's weird. You grow up. I'm just me, and I just assume everyone's like me, which is part of the comparison thing. It's like, okay, they're like me, but they're much better.
Oh, wow.
So, see, mostly you were talking about numbing. I do numb. So I'm a Netflix addict. I'm usually frustrated at the end of my workday with my number one boss. I just try to escape. I just try to get away. So all of my shows are science fiction, space-based fantasies, like as far away as I can get.
But there's feeling.
There is feeling. I'm noticing they're like all really dramatic, and there's always something. It's this constant drama. And I say, what's with all this drama? I have enough of that anyway. And then as soon as I have the hardest time turning it off, and as soon as I do, all the emotions come right back. There's escape while there's something distracting me, but it's just there. Because I work with my hands, there is creative expression there, and I've had that for a number of years. So that's probably my active outlet most days, because what I'm doing isn't beautiful. It doesn't have that satisfaction that I get when I do make something beautiful.
I think, I've enjoyed doing some artwork, not that much these days, and I feel there's something blocking me there. I'm not quite sure why that's so. But I'd say that the thing that I really do feel rewarded in expressing is a meaningful letter or a meaningful toast, or when there are occasions when I have the opportunity to kind of give honor to someone else through a birthday card or a retirement party word spoken out or something like that. I really consider that a high calling, and I feel like I want to really talk about, encapsulate the value of that person's life, and word choice and making that lyrical or whatever just is highly rewarding to me. I keep a catalog of kind of words that I've given, and I just keep it because I feel like those are high moments. I feel like, I love doing that. So something important about that. I'm in a writers group right now, and I don't consider myself a writer at all, but I'm finding that writing poetry also is just there's a nugget of pure emotion in a well-chosen set of words, and it feels very rewarding to go to that space. Yeah.
And he's very good at it.
My go-to is music. So music, listening to the radio, music is my way that I express myself. So even if it's one song, I feel it. I'll just like sing as loud as I can. If a song is playing and then it breaks into harmony and there are two harmonies, I find the third one and I'm singing the third harmony and no one can hear me, but I'm like, this sounds great. So that's my way that I express my feelings, and I like to do it on a daily basis. So if I do feel stressed, I'm thinking, music time. Let's take out my phone and let's listen to some songs. And one song can really, like, I'm feeling the whole thing. I'm feeling God's presence. I'm feeling joy. Yeah, I'm going to explode. I have to find like a positive way to express my feelings. Otherwise I can't be myself at all.
Thank you so much. I think it's really interesting to have the 3 panel and the 4, because I was thinking 4s are such a gift to 3s, like in this world, and the gift it is to be in the presence of a 4 for somebody who really can have a fear of emotions and be with somebody who's so comfortable in being an emotion and okay with that. And somebody's question about ministering to a 3, I think like the 4 has a natural gift in that area in some way. So just thank you for being you and being able to sit in emotion that can be really valuable. One question I had is what it was saying health is going towards the 1, which is action, I believe. What does that feel like when you're moving towards action? So not what does it look like as in what you're doing, but like what does that actually feel? What does that do inside of you?
Yeah, it feels good to act when you need to act. And I think one of the things that's been really interesting for me is action in the form of confrontation. When I don't usually associate this with 1, but I realize now as we're talking that this is really 1-like. It's like, that's upsetting. I have to talk to that person. And I, in my 4-like nature, can be like, I'm not ready to talk to them. Or, the feelings are too strong. And I can worry that, I'm going to be too angry and it's going to hurt them or something like that. But I kid you not, whenever I walk out to actually speak to somebody about something which I'm upset about, it goes really well. And I feel like what happens is that the fear that I'm not going to be understood or that I am going to, the flood of emotion I have is going to be, kind of flow out on them in harmful ways. What happens is as soon as I open my mouth and I'm honest, they appreciate this sort of genuineness of my own expression to them of what I'm feeling. And I immediately feel a compassion. And it's not necessarily there when I'm thinking, I got to talk to this person. I'm feeling really upset. But it just enters in. It's like God is just present to show me, no, go forward. Good things will happen if you go share honestly. And 1s are known for their honesty and wanting to set things right, do the right thing. So I find that that's a really important thing that I need to do, particularly if I'm upset about a situation, that's something that someone has done. I need to go and speak to them honestly about that. And it will usually go well, not guaranteed, but I realize I have a gift mix in me that actually makes it likely that it is going to go well because the way I express honesty and feeling is actually genuinely interested in that other person's own felt experiences. So I can help them there.
Nice. The decision thing, I have a very difficult time making decisions all my life. And when I do make a decision, it does feel like I'm free. It's like, finally, just done. And then I can go for it. But the whole weighing of the million other intricacies of making this decision just really easily can bog me down. And then also I can't sit and be okay with if there's something wrong in one of my relationships. I have to go talk about it. And I don't know, I know myself to be a verbal processor, so I don't know if that's a 4 thing or not, but you got to talk it out. And I think if I had someone to talk to in the morning, instead of writing out everything, like the morning pages, because I can't do that. But if I could just talk to somebody, that would be great.
I've had a lot of 4s in my life, and I actually really enjoy them. I really feel like I understand a lot about them. But there's this one perplexing part. No, the artistic, the expression, the emotion, just the depth of that is really it's really helpful. The thing I don't get is the relational push and pull. So there's like it's super connected, and like I'm going to pull into this idea or into this relationship or into this like feeling close, and then all of a sudden cut off, pull back. And almost every 4 I've known in my entire life have this like kind of that extreme thing at different times. What's a great way to phrase this question? What's up with that?
I don't know. But I'm sure I'd love to spend an hour talking to you about that in great detail and all the nuances covered, because it's a very complex issue.
And all the 4s in the room said?
So yeah, like anybody, we want to be in relationship, and I will use whatever I have to make that relationship happen. But being that beauty is so important to me, whoever the person is, I want it to be just right. This is a little new territory here, so I'm experimenting. If the relationship's going to work, and I feel like I can settle into it for a longer term, it's got to be just right. And being very detail-oriented and extremely particular about everything, it's very hard for you to answer all of my criteria. So relationally, I'm 57 and I'm not married. I've always wanted to be married. And I've had, a few relationships, but they've been great. But there's always something that doesn't fit, or any number of things more like that don't fit, that give me enough pause to stay away. And if that is sensed by the other, then I might be the one who gets dumped. And it can also work the other way around, where I say, I can't, it's not them so much, I don't think I'm capable of loving you well enough for long enough to be the good friend that I really want to be. I can feel it right now. Wow. So it's not that you're bad or I'm rejecting you. It's that somehow you need to be perfect, so that will give me the opportunity to be capable of loving you for any length of time. And so, yeah, I want your love, but whoa, because I don't think this is going to work, because I don't think I've got it in me to actually be the person you want me to be. Because it's for me, it's never simple. I'm like this super complex individual. So for it to work out, there's 1,000 points that need to get checked off. Yeah, I think that's a way to describe that push-pull you're talking about.
Wow. Thank you.
Because 4s will often create a scenario in their head that becomes real, that isn't real, that hasn't happened yet. So then it takes so long for me to pick up the phone, because I'm thinking on the other end, oh, this is what's going to happen. And it doesn't happen. And even if it didn't happen 10 times before, I swear it's going to happen this time. 2, if I get hurt, if someone, like say I was talking with you, Jim, and you said something that hurt me and I knew it was unintentional, I need to pull away first. And I need to go over, okay, why am I hurt? What was said that was hurt? And I know it isn't intentional at all. And I'm like, okay, I need to express that I was hurt. But how do I do this in a way that I'm not going to bring blame to you? Because I know it wasn't intentional. So until I understand that, I'll actually pull away. And then when I understand what's going on, then I'll come back and I'll be like, listen, this was said and I got hurt by this. And like no other number, I don't think would have been hurt. A 4 gets hurt. A 4 can get hurt very easily. 2, we all have different filters. So how I was raised and how and what I got taught growing up, I receive information different. So because I know that my filter needs to be cleaned, I want to pull away. and kind of go like, okay, point A, B, C, D, and E. And once I know that I can articulate that to you and do it without putting the emotion in what I say, because if I do that, let me tell you, I'm going to come back and I'm going to hurt and I'm going to accuse and I can bring up things from like years ago because I'm in that place. And that's what I don't want to do. So until I can articulate in a positive way, I don't want to bring all my mixed bag of emotions because believe me, there can be other scenarios going on and it's a deeper trigger. And I don't want to, the worst thing that a 4 can do is hurt other people with their words.
Thank you.
So I think I'm a 4, and I can relate to the not feeling good enough. But when you brought that up, for me, I think sometimes it's self-sabotaging. So you are so in touch with your feelings and you want to be vulnerable, but then you're scared of not receiving that unconditional love, or maybe you're not deserving of it, or you wonder what you'll be thought of. So maybe I would pull away because of that. But I think it's more around self-protecting than anything towards the other person.
I've never really related that much to that issue, although as I'm thinking about it right now, I think it applies in my life because when I've had a significant, intense time with a friend, that satisfies me and I'll leave it. And so the steady, conventional, normal, ordinary task of just being in touch with people, that's not that interesting to me. Yeah. I hate to say that, and I've learned that it is very important, but I think the reason that, to the degree that I've known that, it's because I'll let it lie. If there's been an important kind of connection, then it'll lie for a while, and I might be seen as a little bit absent because that was satisfying in itself. That was a work of art, that sharing together.
Why mess with it?
I totally agree with that. I'm a terrible correspondent, and I think that's probably why. I never knew why, but I think that makes sense.
Special moments.
Right. Once you're in it, I'm having these great conversations with my friends, but the day-to-day stuff or writing letters just to say whatever, no, it's got to be more important. But then it costs. It takes effort and time. It's like, I don't have time.
That's awesome. Part of the type is the disdain for the mundane, the repetitive kind of thing going on. It's like, it has to be special. Thank you to the 4 panel. Excellent. Thank you so much. Really.
So a huge thanks to our panel of 4s, and a huge thanks to you guys for listening and for joining us again. If you want to find out more about the Enneagram or coaching or a typing interview, you can contact Joel through www.joelhubbard.com. This podcast is produced by Talkie Records in Lynn, Massachusetts, and is made possible by Vine 39 Church in Stoneham, Massachusetts. We're so glad you've joined us in engaging with this tool, which can help so much with self-awareness and empathy. And our hope is that all of this leads us to a more happy, more fruitful, more engaged, and whole life. Have a good one, and next time we turn the corner to the head triad, starting with the 5.